team, welcome to the Everyone Active podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jo.
Hi guys, I'm Michelle, your other host. How are you?
Really good.
Lovely in your yellow,
lovely,
all spring-like, like a little daffodil.
Spring, summer,
sunshine,
positive vibes.
Talking of positive vibes, we have a guest today. How exciting!
We do. Welcoming team, clinical nutritionist Emma Ellice Flint. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Team, to say we are excited about you being here is an understatement today.
Yeah.
We're going to talk to you about everything.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wise.
So Emma is somebody that I personally follow on Instagram, and that's how I found you. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
The main subjects that we are going to be, because you specialise in them, talking about perimenopause and menopause in terms of our nutrition, our bodies and our everything. And Michelle and I are both at different stages in our female cycle, but we have so many questions coming in from people about
so many questions.
Training, their body shapes, how they're feeling differently. So thank you so much for joining us.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very excited to share my knowledge with you. So let's fire away.
So first of all, how did you start off becoming a clinical nutritionist? What is a clinical nutritionist? Explain what that is.
Okay, good story. I'll start actually at the beginning.
Go.
Because I used to be a chef. And I know you didn't know that one either. So I used to be a chef. So I have a big understanding of food, literally how food can taste well and look good and that sort of thing. So I used to be a chef, but I was always very interested in healthy eating. And I knew I couldn't be a chef my whole life, standing in sweaty hot kitchens yelling at people. I can do the yelling, but not the sweaty hot kitchen. So I had a kind of like a moment when I was about 35, and I thought, you know what, I really need to think about what's next. And I had a really supportive family, so I actually completely stopped working, and I went back to study full-time nutrition degree.
Wow.
I know, it was epic, and I thought I was too old, and I thought, what am I doing? But it was a pivotal moment. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I learned all about what foods make a difference in our body, and right down to cellular level. And it was the best thing ever in my life. So that's great. Then I started practicing in Sydney, Australia, which is where I lived then. And I opened a clinic, and I saw mostly women. And of course, I saw women about reproductive issues as well as gut issues and about weight issues, which are actually all completely intertwined.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then I began going into the perimenopause myself. And I was working on myself and seeing what made a difference. And I was seeing clients with the same. And I just really honed in on this area.
Wow.
And found out what worked and what didn't. And fast forward quite a number of years, I'm not going to tell you how many. I feel quite confident in being able to let people know what makes the difference, what foods make a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons, thank you again, I'm going to keep saying thank you for coming on, is I'm so pro what you put in your body and the energy you can take from food and the nutrients and everything down to cellular level, how much of an effect that has on your well-being, your mental state, your absolutely how you're working out that day.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to dig into.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
We're digging into.
So going sort of on a day-to-day level, how much should we be looking at our nutrition, would you say, just generally?
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on the individual, but I think it's a really good thing to concentrate quite hard on it for a while and find what works for you, and get then into that rhythm and that habit of eating well. And actually, after a while, your body will crave those nutritious foods, and it literally will change along with you, and it becomes something, as I say, like a habit where it's not even a chore to think, oh my God, hang on, what nutritious food am I meant to be eating? It just becomes your everyday living.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not long it takes to get there.
Can we go a step back and just, what is nutritious food? Because there's so many marketing schemes out there. There's so many people on Instagrams with cameras and pictures of food, but it's actual what it does to our body cells. What is it?
Okay. What's nutritious food? Well, the thing is, when we're talking about perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, let's concentrate on that. We're talking about food that is mostly plant-based. So the whole plant kingdom, anything that's plant-based, You can eat out of that, some dairy food, some eggs, some meat, some seafood, fish is okay, but mostly plant-based. That is the most nutritious way of eating. Now, within that, of course, we've got loads of macros. We've got fiber and carbs and protein and fats and that sort of thing. And there isn't a correct formula. I cannot tell you here today a percentage of each you should be eating. When we won't do that because it's based on the individual.
I understand.
However, what we've now know when we're talking about nutrition for this time in a woman's life, that in fact fiber and protein and good fats become one of the main focus areas. And in fact, fiber, I can give you a percentage or an amount. 30 grams a day of fiber is a great aim. And that in itself, if we ate that through plant-based eating, if we ate that, hands down, all your symptoms would go down.
Really?
Now, that is a big, bold statement, but fibre really, because it's so anti-inflammatory in the body.
There's the message.
Yeah.
So we're eating food and we're putting it in and we're taking away inflammation from the body. We're we're having better cells operating within our body. So for our repair, for our energy, for our everything, because it's powered by the food that we're putting in.
Yes.
Mother Nature created the food. Mother Nature created our bodies. So it's that complement of food against it. Yeah. So I'm going to just ask you, Mishi, when did you first notice that you were in perimenopause to then your menopause?
So I'm still in perimenopause. So I'm 54. And I was saying to Joe earlier today, I think I first started noticing symptoms when I was about 45-ish maybe. And I had a weird symptom, which was I was teaching a class and it was the palms of my hands. It felt as if there were live, burny, hot creatures underneath my skin. Yeah. It was the most bizarre, and I didn't know what it was. And in fact, I thought I was allergic to something and I took an antihistamine because I thought, goodness, I've touched something, I've done something. And it happened again and again and again. And that was the first symptom that I had.
Interesting. Interesting.
And then I sort of started getting different symptoms and more symptoms. And I think before I started on HRT, I think I had we counted about 35 different symptoms that I was experiencing.
So that is actually fascinating. So it's a lot of women don't actually know that there are numerous symptoms of the perimenopause. So let's define perimenopause for those people that don't know what it is. Perimenopause is that time before you officially go into menopause. Menopause is the day 12 months after your last bleed, that day where you haven't had a menstrual bleed for 12 months, and then you're officially in menopause. That can actually be at any age, not necessarily in your kind of 40s, 50s. So the perimenopause is that time running up to it where women still get periods. They may be erratic or irregular, or they may be very regular and very heavy. All are normal. And it can be anything up to 10 years before the menopause. So you're saying when you were, was it 35? 45, sorry. You got that itching in the hand. Itching. Formication, they call it, actually. I got really itchy legs. That was one of my first symptoms. So there are symptom checkers online. Many reputable places have it. The British Menopause Society have it. The Balance app have a symptom checker. They are really worth a person looking at because it's surprising of what's going on. A lot of women find their mood changes first and perhaps becomes a little bit more... They might become more anxious or even more sad, or lack of joy is one. Yeah. Others find their skin, hair and things change before even their periods. There's so many. It's amazing. And gut changes. There's a lot of gut and fat changes. Like abdominal fat, So that's the definition, and this is it. This is what's going on for you. Yeah. And the symptom checker is so helpful.
Yeah, I've got the Balance app. It's amazing.
It is brilliant, absolutely.
And is that now a reflection of also, because we're so much more aware of it publicly. It's not behind closed doors anymore. It's not hidden. So there are resources out there. Yeah. We've got wonderful people like you online. Yeah. So if any woman out there is feeling a little bit different or potentially having skin itches, different skin conditions, what else? Is there a common top 10?
Well, people think it's hot sweats, but it's not exactly. They might come later, if at all. It actually, unfortunately, mood issues are very common.
Okay.
I could have killed people at one point.
Okay, well, some people get that
I literally
rage.
could have killed people. Honestly, it was... And I'm a happy person.
Yes.
My poor husband. Sorry, Mr. Laurie. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah. So rage, perhaps, but there's the anxiety or the lack of joy, the flatlining in life.
Yeah.
You know, so how sad is that kind of thing? So actually, the mental health issues are the most common, and people think it's because. So typically, a woman goes into menopause. Maybe 51 is the average age, but nobody's average. But that's the average age, and going on in a woman's life at that point is they might have some children at home. So they might have, say, teenage children at home or even younger children at home. That's heavy duty, and they probably or might be still working. They may have elderly parents, unsupportive partner perhaps, if a partner at all. It's just a really heavy duty time in their life anyway. So most women they think it's that. They don't realise that it's actually these natural hormonal changes. And if they were able to recognise it, there is a lot they can do about it. Nutrition being one, but absolutely exercise and looking at the quality of their sleep and looking to HRT and all of that together is just fantastic. Yeah.
And how do you sort of, when you've got ladies who are speaking to you who are in, say, perhaps perimenopause or have gone through and are in postmenopause, how do you advise them on nutrition at that point? Is it very different nutrition advice you're giving them if they're in perimenopause or if they've gone through the menopause? Is it different?
Slightly. It's actually fairly similar because we aim for that fibre definitely, gradually, not straight away. Absolutely do that. When someone's kind of either late perimenopause, which I guess you wouldn't know, but you kind of know, or certainly in menopause, then I actually concentrate harder on phytoestrogens, even if they're on HRT, because phytoestrogen-rich foods really work synergistically with the HRT.
Right.
They're really good. And I'm even more focused on bone health, nourishing foods, because your bone density just drops once you're in menopause. It's like goes off a cliff. It's so unfair. It's like literally in the first few years.
Yeah.
And then it kind of slightly flatlines out again, but it's dropped, it's bonkers. So you really got to concentrate on being supportive, of course through exercise, of course through HRT, but also through your nutrition.
So in terms of fibre, what top foods are out there, easily accessible, that we can encourage people to put into their eating plans?
Okay. All right. Well, the very best are actually nuts and seeds. And that's because they're high in protein, high in anti-inflammatory oils, and high in fibre, as well as being phytoestrogen rich. So, and by the way, phytoestrogens are beneficial in perimenopause as well. It's just I absolutely hone in on them if someone's gone into menopause.
Yeah.
So nuts and seeds, like just a powerhouse. It's amazing. I was literally just listening to a podcast about the vaginal microbiome, and this was an amazing, it's Professor Lebeer, I'll come back to the point about nuts and seeds and fibre in a sec, but Professor Lebeer did this incredible study in Belgium on 6,000 women. So not 1 or 200, 6,000 women about their vaginal microbiome and what correlated with a healthy microbiome and what didn't. And there's many things, and you could do a whole podcast about this, but one of the things was the more women that ate nuts and seeds had a healthier vaginal microbiome.
Wow.
And Professor Lebeer concluded that was because of the phytoestrogens in it. Now, I'm sure she's right, but also there's some really good minerals like zinc in nuts and seeds, and zinc really is great for vaginal health. So,
adding to shopping list, tick.
Yeah, now I'll come back to, the fibre-rich sources. So nuts and seeds, and within nuts and seeds there are some absolute standouts. And they really are things like chia seeds or flax seeds. Flax seeds are called linseeds. They're exactly the same thing. Some shops sell them as linseeds, some sell them as flax seeds. They're the same. And they're a standout because they're really rich in all those things I'm talking about, the fibre, the protein, the anti-inflammatory oils, the phytoestrogens. But I love their type of fibre because they have both soluble and insoluble. So let me explain the soluble fibre. If you put chia seeds or flax seeds into a bit of liquid, they go a bit gloopy or gel-like on the outside. Yeah. In fact, there's a bit of a trend, isn't there, online to look up the chia seed puddings. Do you know the ones?
Yeah.
And that's great. And that's that property, that gel. Now, that gel is called soluble fibre. And gosh, it's loved by your whole gut and your gut microbiome and produces fantastic anti-inflammatory effects ultimately. But so do a lot of other things. But then you've got the insoluble fibre, which is that soluble that, which is, you can almost taste.
Yes.
You chew and it doesn't quite break down. It goes down into your large intestine and your gut microbiome down there go, oh yes, thank you so much. And they love it and lap it up. And in return, they produce not only vitamins and like fantastic neurotransmitters like serotonin or the precursor to it, but they also produce anti-inflammatory nutrients.
That word again, anti-inflammatory.
So it's just such a winner. Now, all nuts and seeds are great, but those two are particularly good. And like a tablespoon a day really is beneficial.
And in terms of a food source that they can put it in or a product that could be made from it, top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, a lot of people think about seeds. If they're having a classic breakfast where it's kind of that yogurt and fruit type breakfast or yogurt and fruit, that's a great one. That's a great one. So you put a tablespoon of ground flaxseed or whole chia seed. Ground flaxseed is much better because whole flaxseed goes in your mouth and comes out in your poo and literally doesn't do anything.
So ground.
Interesting. So ground flaxseed or whole chia seeds are fine. Right. A tablespoon of one or both in your breakfast. Fantastic. Yogurt, natural, unsweetened, incredible. That's a fermented food, so that has anti-inflammatory effects in the body as well as being a great calcium source. And then you might have some fruit, fresh fruit, fantastic. Frozen fruit, just as good. Doesn't matter. I love frozen berries because they're really expensive fresh. So
and they go off so quickly, don't they?
I mean, So have that. What else? I often put cinnamon or fresh grated ginger in my breakfast. I kind of layer up the benefits. So, and sometimes I put a little bit of whole rolled oats for extra fibre benefit. And I just particularly like the insoluble fibre in whole rolled oats. So that's an easy win where you could put those seeds. Yeah. Absolute easy win. And doesn't have to be big and you don't have to eat it at 7 or 8 a.m. If you're not hungry, then eat it at 10. It doesn't matter.
What about sort of later in the day? What would you recommend people have for like lunch and dinner and that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I think, and you can still put nuts and seeds. And this is where actually in the UK it's less common. People don't think to do this, but I love just chucking in any old kind of nuts because I love that crunch in like a salad or a veggie dish.
Yeah.
Like I might, if I'm a bit tired, I might go to my freezer, put out a bag of mixed frozen veg. Easy.
I love those, by the way.
Yeah. So bring it out. How you cook it, it's no right or wrong. Microwave it, steam it, fry it in a fry pan with a bit of olive oil, whatever you like. So the thing with this is you've got some really boring plain vegetables there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Really good for you, but they're not
very inspiring,
they're not very
Yeah.
exciting. And so here we go. So I would put salt and pepper on. I would toss a bit of olive oil in there. I would definitely add some nuts or some seeds, some pumpkin seeds or some sesame seeds, or I love just chopping up a few raw almonds and tossing them in. And then when I'm eating that veg, it's just so delicious. I might squeeze over a lemon or drizzle over some apple cider vinegar. But that vegetable dish is just really interesting. And yes, you'd add more protein than just the nuts. Remember, they do have protein in them. Yeah. I mean, my easiest go-to is firm tofu, another thing that's not commonly used in the UK.
I never use it.
But that is actually got almost as much protein in as fish or chicken.
Wow.
And people don't realise it, and it's so good for you. So, and you just crumble it in like you might crumble feta onto a vegetable salad or something, or a vegetable dish. So then you're really boosting up your protein. And sure, you could crumble in feta or grate over some cheddar cheese for extra calcium. And then you've just got this great bowl of full of veggies, but now they've got crunch in there and protein and calcium and fiber anyway, and it's just delicious.
And then when you're eating that as well, because you've got now a crunch texture, you've got happy hormones going, actually, this is quite enjoyable to eat. I might eat it again.
And I think adding the nuts, I'm just sitting there thinking, that's a genius move.
So anything, and nuts and seeds are also a bit expensive in the UK, but if you buy a mixed bag of nuts, it's better value, and that's fine.
When you say mixed, you're talking like unsalted, so people shouldn't buy like the honey roasted ones.
Not the honey roasted,
so
not the salted, just plain unsalted.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And then seeds, you could buy a mixed bag of seeds if you want, or seeds are better value actually in the UK. So that I would definitely do that. If you're the sort of person you make your own homemade, stews or even pies or cakes or biscuits or anything like that, you just throw in either ground up nuts and seeds or whole nuts into any of those and just think about it. So if it's something that involves flour, not a white sauce, but I mean, a homemade cookies or something, then what you do is you just sub out some of the flour, proportion of it, say a third of it, for some ground seeds, and you grind up your seeds just in your smoothie maker. You don't need a special machine.
Wow.
So it's really good.
And what about the sweet tooth factor?
Yes, well, when we're talking about what doesn't help your symptoms in perimenopause and menopause, sugar is absolutely there, because sugar is inflammatory in the body. When we eat it, it creates inflammation.
What is inflammatory? Because we talk about it, and I mean, we know about it, but let's get the actual clinical definition of what's inflammatory in the body. What happens?
Okay, all right. Well, it's a bit subtle. It's a bit hard exactly to explain because we might be going down to cellular level here. The thing is, our body is actually doing masses of metabolic processes, thousands right now, every second, every minute. And the byproducts of all those metabolic processes are often things called free radicals. And these are like little tiny kind of zippy, zappy, toxic-y things that our bodies just naturally want to get rid of, because if they wander around the body, it's almost like they're zapping you, and it's not good. And they're creating almost like this very subtle cellular level toxic environment. Our body wants to get rid of it. Our body is designed to get rid of it. It uses what we call antioxidant type nutrients. Now, people have heard of antioxidants, and they think of things like vitamin C and zinc and beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, and foods like that as being helpful antioxidants to eat. So basically all fruit and vegetables, all plant food actually contains these great nutrients which are antioxidant in the body. And these antioxidants go around and they soak up or attach effectively to these free radicals, and it all gets lovely, beautifully detoxified out of the body. And that's going on all the time. When we are in perimenopause, our hormones are just going up and down like a roller coaster. In menopause, our hormones have just our female sex hormones almost disappeared. And actually, those hormones itself are anti-inflammatory in the body. And so you've lost those, that develops more of an inflammatory state in the body. And so there's more need for these anti-inflammatory nutrients to go in to help kind of mop up this inflammatory state, it's right down at cellular level. It's all over the body. Let's give you an example of the symptoms a person might feel if they've got this subclinical inflammation going on, where their body isn't just detoxifying away these free radicals so well. They might be foggy in the head or have headaches even, certainly be lethargic. Perhaps their sleep's disturbed. They might put on more abdominal fat, that sort of thing. Now, also, we think about the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, and those are symptoms of that as well. And also, when someone is lacking in exercise, we know they have more inflammation in their body, because exercise ultimately is anti-inflammatory. It might create a little bit of inflammation just straight after the exercise, but ultimately it's anti-inflammatory. So we've got all these things. In fact, good sleep is anti-inflammatory. It's all intertwined. And really, I think it's worth the person knowing less about what's going on at the cellular level, but more about, well, what are the symptoms?
Yeah.
And they are very similar to the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. You want to help get rid of those by eating anti-inflammatory foods, which is basically the whole plant kingdom.
Yeah. So when we're talking about things to avoid food-wise during perimenopause in particular, we're talking about what, alcohol, that kind of thing?
Alcohol, sugar,
Basically everything nice.
Alcohol, sugar, and foods that ultra-processed foods. They are really inflammatory in the body, and they don't feed your gut microbiome. They do the opposite. They kind of feed almost the gut microbes that we don't want.
What's examples of ultra-processed foods?
Okay, so that's food where most of the fiber's been stripped out, for example, and most of the vitamins have gone because of the processing. And so it might be a bought biscuit or a bought cake. Other ultra-processed meals might be a bought pizza or like a takeaway burger or a pizza.
Like a sort of ready meal kind of thing.
A ready meal. Not all ready meals are, but some might have good amounts of fibre in. And if you made a homemade pizza, there's a flatbread recipe, for instance, on my website where I use really great flours, buckwheat flour, oat flour. So it's high in fibre and it's dead easy to make, actually. And I make my own pizza and then it's okay. So it's really the ready meals or the ready prepared, and they've stripped all the goodness out.
The quick grab and go food as well. If you're walking through the supermarket, I'm going to put that in the plastic, I'm going to pick that. So it's also now changing your habits to help out your body. Try and grab that piece of whole fruit. And you said it earlier in the introduction, the more you're eating it and the more you're putting it into your body, the more your body is going to start craving. Do you know what?
It does.
My energy levels are up because I'm recognizing that I'm eating more vitamins, more of my macros, and definitely with the fibre. So it sounds like it's a challenge, but once you get in that habit and it becomes habitual, but it's not just habitual, it is your actual body giving you the signals and giving you the hormones and giving you the signs that this is helping us. One of the things that happens quite often in perimenopause females is their lack of energy. They'll come to train one week and they'll be like, no, like I can't. What's going on? What can I do? And it's that catch-22 actually. Do you know what? Your body is saying you don't need to be doing this right now. So we'll change your training slightly for this week. Is there anything we can be eating to help us recognise that? What should we be doing at that time?
Well, it actually does come back to the healthier a person can eat, the more energy they will have. So it's not about carbohydrates, not literally about, say, fueling before you walk into the gym, actually. It's about overall this inflammatory state which happens in perimenopause and menopause, and trying to dampen that down and reduce that through the healthy eating. And then a person will... I have so much more energy now than I had 20 years ago.
Really?
I couldn't believe it. As I changed my eating, I had more energy and never thought about it. And then I reflected back about 3 months after I started eating well, and I flipping heck, and I
How quickly did you see a change, would you say, when you sort of changed your eating? How quickly did you see that change
Actually, within a few days.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you have a look at what you're eating, so that breakfast I described earlier, that's great for a person to eat when they're hungry. They don't have to eat it till they're hungry. So that's one tick. Amazing. They do, if they make that meal for themselves every morning, absolutely great. They've nourished themselves. They've started off well. Then when they next are hungry, it's about kind of knowing what's next. And if they're one of these people that make their own evening meal, which some, fair few people do, that's fantastic. But just make double then. Yeah. So have extra veggies and stick it in a lunchbox thing and grab it and go and that sort of thing. Maybe it's those frozen veg, or maybe it's just some really simple veggies, just cooked up. Maybe they're steamed. I like to fry my veggies now with a little bit of olive oil because they're more tasty, and that's when I just chuck in the nuts, and then I might have some cooked quinoa and I chuck that in, and maybe I might have some watercress or a rocket and I chuck that in once the veggies are cooled and that sort of thing. And I instantly got myself a salad. I just have to add any old protein, which might be lentils or chickpeas or more nuts, or it might be crumbled tofu, or it might be the grated cheese. A hard cheese is higher in protein, or it might be some cooked eggs. Or actually, in my case, it's a bit of all of that, because I kind of like all of those flavors and not a lot of one. And so, that doesn't take any time at home if you actually cooking up a few veggies for dinner, just cook up some more. It's the great base to start with. I love cooked sweet potato or butternut squash is a great
it's making
base.
me really hungry. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
We could have bought a hob.
Watch this space. Season 4. Dive in. Once we've gone through perimenopause and we've hit menopause, what happens to our nutrients then? What are the main tips or food sources that we should
So I think I mentioned earlier, I do concentrate on even harder on phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens are in all plant food. I'm coming back to the same theme here.
I'm powered by plants. I love this episode.
People actually think that phytoestrogens are just in soy, say. They think of soy milk, tofu as a really good phytoestrogen source, and they're right, but actually there are phytoestrogens in all plant foods, in fact, but some are higher. So the soy foods, the nuts and seeds, but especially things like almonds, chia seeds, flax seeds, really high in phytoestrogens, which is fantastic.
All these things I love.
Yeah.
We have spoken about plants a lot, and I will absolutely say I'm 100% plant-based. But I absolutely recognise that there are people out there that are either scared of preparing vegetables, don't like vegetables, haven't found a fruit that they like. Top tips on bringing more nutrition into their...
Simply just one more veg, just one. So if they don't have any vegetables, say when they eat in the evening, have one. If they have one, have two. That's just bring one more. And I think one of the most nutritious ones, easiest, is to have some broccoli, bag of frozen broccoli in that freezer. Just bring it into your eating, and that's it. And if they eat meat, great, but try and bring more veg in, so actually they fill up a little bit more on the veg than the meat. Or cut the meat into strips and do like a stir-fry veg sort of thing. It doesn't have to be all recipe-driven. It doesn't have to be all posh. You just bung it in to a fry pan and toss it around, and then cook the strips of meat up. And yes, if you've got sesame seeds in the house, put them in. Sesame oil is ridiculous. It's so expensive. I never cook with it. But sesame seeds are great because they've got all the nutrition in still. And, if you have some fresh ginger, great some in at the end, even a chopped garlic, but don't worry if you don't have it. Bit of soy sauce, yum, like literally yum.
Also, I love this herb cupboard full. Loads of different ranges, loads of different flavours, and then you can add so many in. And it totally changes. But you're bringing extra into your body for little effort.
And also what people don't know is, herbs have got plenty of phytoestrogens in them, plenty of calcium in them, and herbs and spices are absolutely loved by the gut microbiome.
And do they have to be fresh, or can people use them if they're dry?
Dry or fresh, absolutely great. And that gut microbiome loves those herbs and spices, and they will produce those anti-inflammatory nutrients, not nutrients, they're compounds actually, as a result. So they're such a win. Just chuck them in. Loads of recipes on my website. You just throw in herbs. But as you say, dried is just as good as fresh. Because the thing is, we can't all afford to buy, bunches of herbs or have a great herb garden or even a windowsill full of herbs. It's because for me, I like a handful of parsley, and if I'm having fresh herbs, and of course, if I had a pot of parsley on my windowsill, then I'd decimate it in almost one go.
Just to round up, 2 questions. If you're grabbing and going with something, what is your go-to?
Okay, well, I've actually got it in my bag today because I knew should have brought it out onto here.
Show and tell, yes.
Okay, well, definitely. So I cooked up a couple of eggs last night. A classic, isn't it? That's a grab and go food. That's my protein done. I've actually got some, I would have any any raw veggies in there, like anything, and it wouldn't be prettily cut up sticks of raw veggies. I might literally grab a cucumber or a carrot and chuck it in my bag and think, oh, later maybe I might either wash it, I wouldn't peel it, but wash it, but then usually just eat it. And that's fine. If I knew I was having one of those days where I needed a little bit of carbiness, apart from the nuts and seeds that are always in my bag, I might literally get some oat cakes that are just plain oat cakes, something like that. Or those like multigrain crackers, they'd be really good as well. They're really good. As well as a multigrain, they've got good fibre in them. And that we haven't even talked about how all of that lowers your glycemic index or lowers the insulin effect from what you're eating, which comes back to this abdominal fat, which is so common to gain. And really, all you have to know is abdominal fat comes on in menopause because our insulin sensitivity is lessened because of the change in our hormones, not for anything a woman actually does. It's literally because she's gone into menopause. So when you're thinking about food, you think about protein and fibre and good fats first to eat, which means that actually you won't have an insulin spike from your food, and it's less likely, therefore, you will have abdominal weight gain. That's kind of all you have to think about.
Can you come and live at my house?
Yeah, definitely.
You've actually topped on my second question was, the most common question we also get is, I have got abdominal fat and I don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's so common, and it is literally the hormone changes, so it is not to do with anything a woman is doing.
I was saying to you off camera, wasn't I? I'm not even having a nice time and it's 2 stone, boom, and it's I've never had it before.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, yes, you were talking earlier that a woman gets more tired. She does, definitely in perimenopause and early menopause. So maybe her exercise reduces. Also, maybe because she's so tired, she might reach, not in your case, but she might reach for more of the ultra-processed foods or sugary foods or more alcohol. Okay, that can happen, and that's definitely a culprit. But also the insulin resistance changes, that lovely mechanism that works so well in our bodies, but can work so poorly as well. So if the food the person's eating is just high in those healthy nutrients first, yes, sure, they could have perhaps a sugary something after they've eaten that food straight away, then that blunts that negative sugar effect. But if they have that sugar mid-afternoon when they're hungry without any of the protein or the fibre, then, oh boy, it's going to go to abdominal fat and nowhere else.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you hear that one, girls? Hear that one? I know I said top 2, but I've actually thought of a third that we've not touched on, and then we promised we will round up.
Yeah, promise.
How important is staying hydrated?
Oh, yeah, extremely, because when you're dehydrated, you're tired. I mean, it's like, and you go, oh, why am I tired? Drink some water. Yeah. I mean, yes, you're more tired in perimenopause and menopause, hugely. It's difficult to calculate how much water or liquid a person needs each day. The thinking is an average height woman would need, say, 2 litres a day. But is she drinking teas or coffees, or is this just water, or is this herbal teas? Like liquid, I talk about really. Just roughly 2 litres a day spread out during the day. Yeah.
Do that there. I know.
We could speak to you for hours.
We will. Most important question, if people want to find you, what is your Instagram handle? Okay,
so it's Emma's, so Emma with an S, _nutrition. Because unfortunately,
put that in a link, I think.
Yeah, please do. And that'll take you to my website. There's lots of free recipes on my website, and most of them have videos, because I know it's so hard. People read a recipe, they go, oh, no, I can make that. Actually, watch me doing it, because I don't like to cook for very long at all. And so these are really, quickies.
They're brilliant. Thank you for them.
Amazing.
And from an Everyone Active point of view, because there is so much more science out now, and we're so more aware of how the female body works and the hormones work, there are personal trainers and group exercise instructors, swimming instructors that work within the facilities who have upskilled, who have trained, who can talk to you either from a personal experience of what we're going through, or because we've been taught what's happening. So please open the conversation with us.
Definitely.
Make it normal. We are all female. We all go through hormonal changes. It's going to happen. talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And-
brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Thanks.
Yes. Oh, I can tell we're going to have loads of questions.
Lots of questions. So pop your questions to us, podcast@everyoneactive.com, and we will put them through to you if that's okay.
Great, absolutely.
Amazing.
Very happy.
But team, thank you so much for listening. We cannot wait for the questions that you are going to be sending in, and we will absolutely
and
forward them
share
over to
this
Emma.
podcast with your female friends and also actually your male friends, because they need to know what's going on as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you
Emma,
again.
thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, pleasure.
Team, thank you for listening. As always, please leave us a nice review, and we will see you again soon. Take care.
Bye.